Moving during the pandemic. That's what's coming up on The Art of Bombing, episode 155.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. I'm Dan Bublitz Jr., here with you on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. I hope everybody had a fantastic week. I hope things are going good this week for you. I do apologize that this episode is coming out later in the day on Tuesday, and that is because it required a little more editing, and I didn't have time to do that editing over the weekend because I was doing a big home improvement project. I had to redo my deck. It needed to be done before the winter time, and it ended up taking a little longer than I had anticipated. So I did not get a chance to do the editing, but now here we are. I got it done today. I'm getting it released, and it was worth the wait because it's a great episode, because I had a fantastic conversation with my friend Coco Briscoe. She's a fantastic comedian and voiceover actor. And we had a great conversation about a whole bunch of different things. We talked about writing, talked about reading comedy books and taking classes, and all kinds of great things. And that's what's going to be coming up, my great conversation with Coco. Before we do that, let's handle some business. Great news, everybody. My Dry Bar comedy taping has been rescheduled for October 16th, 2020. That's right. Some light in 2020. I'm very excited about that. That means you need to be on the lookout, danbublitz.com, for upcoming dates, because now I'm going to be hitting it hard and trying to do some shows, hopefully socially distanced, maybe some outdoor shows, things of that nature. You know, stay safe. It's still a pandemic. I understand that. So we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it in a safe way. So make sure you keep up on that. If you haven't done so already, you know what you got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. You know, give us a 5-star rating, leave a review, do the things that help the podcast get found. You know, the things. All right, cool. And make sure you follow us on social media. We have the Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. We have a Twitter and an Instagram. All the places where there's social media, you can pretty much find The Art of Bombing. So if you're not already following it, I'd appreciate it if you did. And of course, if you want to get involved and help the show financially, you can always join the Patreon. There's some great perks on the Patreon, and that's at Patreon.com/Art of Bombing Pod. Maybe it's not a backslash, it's probably just a slash. All right, well, that's enough of the business. You know, everything else you can find at the website, artofbombingpod.com. And before we get into this, I should let you know, last week I started playing stand-up clips. Coco did not have a clip available, so there will be no clip this week. But that is going to be a regular thing when I have access to a clip for stand-up. So, all right, without further ado, here is my conversation with Coco. Enjoy.
You're in a city?
Yeah, I live in St. Paul, Minnesota.
You know, that's where I thought you lived, and I was thinking about it earlier, and then I was like, no, it's somewhere else. I don't know why I was thinking South Dakota. Are you from?
Well, I lived in South Dakota. I grew up in South Dakota, and I was living there. When I left San Diego, I did move back to South Dakota. So that's probably why you're thinking South Dakota, because that's part of my history.
Do you remember me telling you the story about how I tried to book a flight to Scotland and I booked a flight to South Dakota?
No, but that's so funny because I've been to Scotland, South Dakota.
There's a Scotland, South Dakota? Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Yeah, I the South Dakota airport name is very similar to Scotland's. I forget what it is. I mean, it must be SD or something. And
I think it's like FSD or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But I was like, oh my God, these tickets are so cheap. I have to buy them right now. And I bought them and I was so excited. And weeks went by and I I didn't even realize. And then I was like, oh my God. And luckily they were able to change my flight, but I was just like mortified. Like, like what a ding dong. Who does that?
Wow. Yeah. Well, whoops. Well, at least they were able to switch it up for you, because that would have sucked.
Can you imagine having to spend 2 weeks in South Dakota? No,
I know, right?
But like,
could you?
It's not my jam.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I spent over 32 years there, so I know all about that.
Are we already podcasting, or is this?
Oh yeah, I'm totally recording. Yeah, I just go into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is going.
Oh, cool. I'll tell. Well, I probably don't have more interesting stories. That's an okay story.
I'm sure it'll be fine. So how are you liking being home in Virginia?
I love it. I can't believe I'm saying that. Usually when I'm here, I come back and visit, and it's always because some tragedy happened. Like, it feels like the only time I get to travel home is like for a funeral, and I've had a lot in the past couple of years. No way to be a downer, right, Coco?
Yeah.
But, so I'm usually here and like something not good has happened, and then I'm like really itchy to get back to my life, my exciting life in LA. But as we know, with the pandemic, it hasn't been very exciting, and I've been holed up in my apartment for 4 months, 5 months. And it was miserable, and I didn't like it. And so now being able to be back home, I'm breathing fresh air. Look at all these trees. There's like greenery and birds and wonderful things. And I'm really loving connecting with family, reconnecting with family. And yeah, it's good.
That's good. That's awesome. That's great. And you're able to, because you do voiceover work, and so you're able to still do that, right?
Yeah, I'm working. I'm totally working. So that's great. I'm making money still, which is cool. And I haven't had that itch. Oh, what I was going to say when I started to tell you that whole thing about coming home for funerals and stuff was that normally I'm like, I like have this feeling after about a week that I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here. Like, I need to go back. And like, I've been here a month now, and I'm just like, I can't imagine going back to LA. Like, the thought of that gives me a little bit of a panic attack.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get that. That's part of coming back. When I moved back to South Dakota, I started the only time I really went home was in my case, it was for comedy. Like, if I was on a tour, I would go through South Dakota and see some people, but it was always just rush. And after, everything that happened to me in San Diego, I decided to come home for Christmas, and I did. And after being home for Christmas, I was like, I really miss being home. I kind of want to move back. And so then I did. And I started actually feeling it when I went on tour the summer before, because I was like, I spent like 2 weeks in the Midwest, and I was just like, I really miss kind of being in the Midwest.
Yeah, I feel like living in cities, it's exciting. And there's so many cool things to do, especially when you're in show business. But when you're ready to go, you're ready to go. Like, and I felt it in like sorry, I'm just looking for my dog. Where the hell did she go? Okay, so my dog has been licking toads.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so what happens is she licks the toads, and then she froths at the mouth, and then she throws up like all day. And I thought she would learn her lesson and stop doing that. But no, she didn't. She's probably
no, that's what dogs do.
Oh my God. I know. I just have to like have eyes on her. Oh, I see her. Okay. Daisy, come here. Come here.
It's funny. My dog's been eating bugs. That's his thing now. Like, he'll come back inside and have like a big old bug in his mouth. We're like, no, you can't eat that. You're going to get sick. It's going to throw up. It's going to be gross.
Yeah, I never had to worry about this being in a city apartment with my dog. I never had to worry about her killing things or licking things or chasing things or whatever, and I've never had any real issues. And now I have her here, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so many things. There's so many elements, like snakes that could bite her and skunks that can spray her and attack her. And it's been kind of crazy. I almost hit a bear with my car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You are in nature.
Yeah. So my cousin was like, hey, Coco, let's go tubing and floating down the Shenandoah River. Cause we're rednecks. That's what we do. And so she was like, you should stay the night, bring a tent or something and stay the night. And I was like, no. Like, that's where I have to draw the line. Like, I'm not sleeping outside in nature. What if I get eaten by a bear? And she's like, there's no bears here. Like, what are you talking? Nobody ever sees bears. Like, they exist, but they never come around. And I'm on my way to the campsite. And of course, I almost hit a black bear, and I tried to film it, but I was like shaking and freaking out and like dropping my phone, and I wasn't able to film it. Hi. My uncle is taking a picture of me.
Oh, that's funny.
Because he knows I'm on a podcast, so I think that's exciting.
Quick picture and I'll be done with you.
Okay, hi. I'm like sweating. I have like a sweaty upper lip. It's hot out here. Isn't this cute?
Cameos.
I love this. See, family's proud of you. That's what's nice about being home. You can come say hi if you want, Rick. What happened to you, Dan?
I don't know what happened there. I don't know. Like, my camera went out for a second. That was weird. Wow.
Yeah. Well, glad you're back.
Yeah, me too.
That was all.
That's
That was all
weird.
very funny. Well, it was like perfect time because like my uncle was taking a picture, and then I was feeling embarrassed. I don't know why I was taking a picture.
And then I just suddenly went blank. I don't know. Well, unless I must have hit the mute thing by accident.
Oh, that's okay.
That's weird.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine what the picture looks like. It's just like a picture of me with my laptop computer, but he's like, oh, she's like posting on Facebook. She's on a podcast. You know,
that's funny.
Happens around here. So, you know, this is the most exciting thing that's happened in his whole day.
So the area where you're living at now, what's the population? Like, are you near a big town, or are you living in a little town? Like,
so I'm bouncing around. I am bouncing between Woodbridge, Virginia, and the Shenandoah Valley. Woodbridge is like 30 minutes from DC. So I'm really close to DC, which is nice. It's city. It's like, it's not that different from LA, actually, in this area. I mean, there's everything that you need, plenty of stuff to do, but also like everything's still spread out. So like, I don't get this in LA, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
The backyard with the greenery and all that stuff. I really hope my dog does not run away on this podcast. I can't even be distracted by her. If she runs away, I guess she runs away. This whole thing is just going to be me like, Daisy, stop licking toads.
The dog's probably loving being in Virginia. Like, out of the city, I get all this outdoor time. This is amazing.
She is like the happiest dog in the entire world. She has other dogs to play with. She has plenty of things to sniff and plenty of areas to run. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so happy she's adjusting so well. But yes, so I'm between here and the Shenandoah Valley, which is where I grew up, which is very small town. And I'm basically just bouncing around and freeloading until everyone gets sick of me. And then I'll have to get my own place. But I don't want to do that yet. I'm not ready. I still don't even believe that I'm here. I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, did I just really I got rid of everything that I owned.
I was just going to add, that was going to be my next question. Did you give up everything in LA before you left? So like that way, cause it almost is like, I don't want to get an apartment here or get my own place yet. Cause it's almost like, well, maybe that's cause you're thinking about going back and you don't want to fully commit. But if you got rid of the apartment and everything in LA, then that's different.
I'm really stressed out about it. I mean, like in one way it's very freeing. It's like cleansing. Everything that I own fits in a tiny cardboard box now. Like I had a box shipped, like not much stuff, a few things. I was like, I need my passport, and my car title and my Elizabeth Warren costume. And that's it. And then, that's all I needed. And so, yeah, I don't really have much stuff. But yeah, the girl who rented my apartment, because I really wasn't sure that this was the right choice. I was just coming home for a visit. I was like, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Pandemic. I'm going to drive across the country. That way I have my car. I'll spend, a few weeks. And when LA opens back up, I'll just drive back. It's a 4-day drive. It sucks a lot. But I got here and I was just loving it so much. And I'm like, I could live here again. Like, I'm finally I'm older. I'm more settled. I'm not like, woo, I have to be in a big city because it's so exciting. Like, I'm not that exciting. I mean, and I was like, I just need a sign. And so I was like, God, universe, whatever, magical fairies in the sky, whatever, please give me like a clear sign that this is the right thing. And I got the sign. I kind of put the feelers out and a girl went and looked at my apartment. And I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of my apartment, but it was really cute. I definitely had like cute furniture, and I spent time like decorating it and putting up art and making sure it was really like my taste and style. And she loved it. And so she rented it as is and bought everything in my apartment.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
everything.
excellent.
Bought everything. Yeah, she gave me like one lump sum for everything that I own, literally including my dishes, my clothes, like everything. So basically, someone took over my entire life.
That's kind of scary, though.
Isn't it?
Wait a minute. Bought all your clothes, bought all your, like, just decided, you know what? I'm going to be Coco Briscoe. And pretty soon we're going to have like another one popping up on Facebook. And it's, you know, it's going to be like one of them copycats, but like for real life. Like it isn't an actual fake account.
Right. Yeah. And she is younger and prettier. So, you know, that's just what LA needs. They're always the better version. So it's fine. But yeah, so she didn't really want it wasn't like she was like, I want all your clothes and shoes. Like, it wasn't like that. But I was like, if I rent you the place as is and I give you this price, because obviously I took way less money for all of my belongings than they were worth. I was like, then you have to take it as is. I'm not moving anything, like at all. Like I'm not like taking my time to hire movers and you know, whatever. So yeah, so she took it as is. So it's exactly as it was. And I have all my personal belongings. And here we are in Virginia. I own nothing. And I have no real career to speak of. I mean, I have voiceover work, but I mean, you know, I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life, I guess.
Yeah, don't we all? But that's the nice thing about that, though, is that with doing the voiceover work, you can do that from everywhere and anywhere. And that's the same with comedy. You know, as long as you have the equipment and stuff for the voiceover work, you can live wherever, you know. And that's one of the things I really love about stand-up is that you can live pretty much anywhere to do it. Like, you know, if you want to get into TV and the show business stuff, it helps to live in New York or LA. But if you want to just go do comedy and try to make a living, you can pretty much live wherever. You know, as long as you're close to an airport.
Exactly. And I am. And you know what? There's comedy clubs here in DC. And I've been talking to some friends. They're like, why don't you just be a road comic? Because I've been an LA comic, which, you know, I'm like, I'm an actor and I want to be on TV and look at me. But I definitely think about maybe if you see me looking around, I'm just like trying to keep an eye on this little dog. She's digging a hole in the ground. I have no idea there's probably lizards or whatever. Anyway, it's very distracting. I'm sorry. But yeah,
well,
maybe
more so. Is there like a bird chirping now?
Now there's a bird chirping. I know.
Okay.
I feel like our podcasts never go. I'm never as prepared as I should be, Dan.
No, that's okay. I'm just making sure because I'm like, is that a bird or is somebody pounding something? It's like, is your dog digging a hole with a jackhammer or what's going on back there?
Oh, no, another dog's barking. Probably a bear is going to pop up behind me and, like, who knows?
Well, that'll definitely get the video released.
Oh, my gosh. I went to the Chesapeake Bay to this little seafood restaurant, and there was, like, some water there because it's the bay, you know. And I was like, oh, it's so pretty. And I was standing by the water, and this, like, giant water moccasin popped up with an eel in its mouth. And I was just like, like I've been a city girl for so long that all these things are not like, I'm just not used to them, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, Stetson. Sorry. My uncle will let them in eventually, but because all the dogs are in. Okay. There were 4 dogs out here. Yes, I've gotten fat, Dan. Don't look at
you should see me. Jesus. Oh my God.
Oh, am I allowed to cuss on your podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Quarantine 15 is no joke. I mean, I'm actually losing weight since I came here because I actually have like outdoors to be in and like, you know, not that I have an excuse. Like I had a Peloton bike in LA. Like, to be honest, I should have had my fat ass on that, riding it all through quarantine and then I could be in great shape. But no, it was all about DoorDash and
yep.
Oh my gosh. I was just like, I have no pleasures in life. I just get to eat and watch stuff and this is all I have. And obviously,
yeah. I've been trying to cut back on drinking a little bit to try to lose a little bit of weight. Cause I gained like 20 pounds. It's ridiculous. I was like, oh shit, I gotta do something here.
But you know what? It's everyone. Well, it's not everyone. There's two kinds of people in quarantine. There are the people that have been like improving themselves and learning languages and working out and being awesome. And then the rest of us, which I feel like is like 90% of us normal people, you know, we were just like, we're in a global pandemic. This is awful. And I'm just going to shovel food into my fat face and like have a great time. And that's what I was doing. I'm like, I'm single. So it's like, I have, you know, no dating life, no sex, nothing to enjoy. I don't do drugs. So yeah, booze it up and eat the burritos. Let's go.
gotta have something to make life exciting, make it worth living for, right?
Seriously, it was depressing. I honestly quarantine. You know, the first like few weeks of it, I was like, this is awesome. Like, obviously I don't want anyone to die, so that's not awesome. But like, I was like, I just get to like sit here and do nothing. This is amazing. And I'm going to really enjoy this and really kick back. And then I started freaking out and I was like, oh no, like it's too much time indoors. It's not healthy.
Yeah. And they were a lot stricter out in California and rightfully so. I mean, they had a bigger, a lot more numbers or whatever. It was a bigger spread there, but that's one thing that's nice about living in areas where we live now. I mean, people take it serious, but it's also still, you can at least go outside. You can feel the sun, like it's not as strict out in these areas, which is good. Because I couldn't imagine not leaving my place, at all for months. That's just insane to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, we had stay-at-home orders, we couldn't go anywhere unless you're going to the grocery store and that's it. Or if you were an essential worker. So, and I was all about obeying that. I really was. I was like, yes, let's just stay the heck home and get rid of this thing so we can all go back to normal life. So I totally obeyed the rules and everything. Being in Virginia, everything is like operating business as usual here, which is kind of freaking me out. I'm like, I mean, everybody's wearing masks. And maybe that's why our numbers aren't that bad. Everybody was wearing masks. All the businesses obviously have that mandatory mask thing. But I'm getting eaten alive by skeeters, by the way.
Well, you're the one that chose to sit outside.
Do you see how the humidity, like I showered for you, Dan, and I actually put makeup on my stupid face that I don't know if you've been seeing my TikToks. I don't wear any makeup. My hair is just insane. I don't even care. I've given up on life. And,
and that's the best life.
Right? I've been having a great time. I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't care at all. But I actually like put makeup on my face and did my hair. But now I've been, what are we talking 10 minutes in the humidity? By the end of this thing, my hair I'll look like Diana Ross. It's going to be crazy. There's no such thing as good hair in Virginia. There's no such thing.
Yeah, well, see, that's one thing that's a privilege about this, I guess. I don't have to deal with that. Although whenever I hear people complain about hair, I'm like, shut up. I don't know what that is and haven't known what that is for like 10 years now.
That's like when skinny girls are like, I feel so fat. I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly how I feel about it. Oh man. So do you plan on getting back into comedy? I know we talked before and you were already talking about it in the pandemic or whatever, but is that something that's still part of your plan now that you've moved? Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I feel like I've never left comedy. Like, I guess I did in the physical sense of I wasn't getting on stage all the time anymore. But I've always been writing. I'm always writing. I think once you're a comedian, you just always think like a comedian and you want to keep writing and doing those kinds of things. And I do it all the time. I mean, I wake up and I have ideas and I put them in my notes on my phone. I work out bits all the time and I'm constantly thinking about it. I do write commercials. I wrote a commercial recently for a company and voiced it. So I'm staying creative in that way. I'm staying in comedy that way. But yes, to answer your question, stand up, I think it is in my future. I intended on just taking a break from it, and the break just ended up being longer than I wanted. Mm-hmm. I had other priorities, and LA is such an expensive place to live, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a starving artist. And so I was really actually happy with where I had, gotten in my life. I was like, I can work very minimally and afford my nice apartment, and my car is paid off. And I was feeling very good about that. And I was like, I have plenty of time now to pursue acting and comedy. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, that's not anymore. So yeah, so now here I am. But yeah, I mean, I would like to actually see what the comedy scene is like around here, because I think it's different in every city. I did comedy in Virginia when I first started, many, many, many years ago. I mean, literally how long? Like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And then I did it in New York City a little bit, not a lot, a lot. San Diego was really where I started to, be a comic. And then LA, and I just really did not like the LA comedy scene. No offense to anyone or the scene itself. It wasn't for me. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, and then being out there, you are closer. I mean, you're closer to New York, you're closer to DC, and I've heard DC's got a pretty good scene. I know, and I don't know if you ever met him, but he was a comic that lived in San Diego, Maher Mata. He's kind of in the DC area now. I think he was in San Diego after you moved to LA, so you probably didn't run into him. But
yeah, that was 6 years ago that I moved to LA, so it's been a while.
Yeah. So he, but anyway, yeah, that was somebody that was in San Diego, but I think he was originally from that area, the Baltimore, DC area, kind of did comedy out there, then moved to San Diego, then they moved back or whatever. But
okay.
But yeah, so it seems like they got a pretty good scene out there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have a sneezing fit probably every 5 minutes. This is also part of my Virginia life. Allergies are back. Yay! Frizzy hair and allergies and mosquito bites. This is my new life.
Allergies I can relate with. I've been, yeah. Yeah, No, it's not. Since we moved to Minnesota, my allergies have been kicking my ass because there's a lot more vegetation here than there was in South Dakota. So, and even, more so than California.
I've literally already gotten like 15 mosquito bites since this podcast started. Just FYI.
Do you need to go inside?
No, I'm going to give you skeeter updates. Just let you know how bad this is. Here's why I'm not inside. This is why I'm not inside. Because my uncle is older. I don't want to say old. That's rude. He's older, and he blasts, and he's a Republican. He blasts Fox News.
Oh, okay.
Like, if I open the door, it's so loud. And, I don't even know if he does this. Like, I don't know if he did this before I lived here, or if this is just his way of, like, punishing me for being a Democrat. Like, I honestly, I feel like it's a little malicious. Like, I feel like he's trying to, like, push my buttons. But, we just try to ignore each other. I think that's the best way for family to get along. Just ignore each other.
That's funny. Unless you're doing a podcast, and then he's got to get a picture.
He's got to get a picture, right, because he's proud of me. He was very proud of me when I did beauty pageants and I would win. And then he wanted to take me around to meet all the neighbors. But when I'm wearing my half-naked lady on my shirt, my Betty Page shirt, not so proud. Not so proud.
He's like, I used to like you. Now, well, I have to still because you're family. But
exactly. I think I was actually wearing this shirt last time we podcasted. I don't know.
I don't remember. That was a while ago.
Did you ever even use that podcast, or was it so?
Well, I mean,
on my phone.
It was live. So I mean, because it was live on my IG, so people did see it, and it was there for 24 hours. So it's not like it just went. I didn't release it as a regular episode because I couldn't get the audio. It just wasn't. Your audio was super, super quiet. You could hear mine, and trying to increase it, and it wasn't working. So it's not the worst audio I've ever gotten, though.
I'm really hoping all of these like chirpy animals in the back don't ruin this episode. But you know what, Dan? I love podcasting with you, so
That's all right. Well, and I usually, when there's crazy things that happen in the background or whatever, when I do my intro to the podcast, I usually give everybody fair warning of what's going on. So, and I think people are more understanding with the fact that we're in a pandemic because, I mean, I listen to all kinds of podcasts, and I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff in the background, just because this is what podcasts are, you know. People's kids are jumping in on it, and like in the background, and there's animals and, you know, nature.
Yeah. I mean, I could have gone like upstairs in a room, but I thought we were using the video, so I was like, oh, look at all this beautiful greenery, and this will be great, and it'll be nice outside, and I messed up, Dan.
That's okay. It does look nice, though.
On this one, I'm sorry. Anywho.
Well, talking about comedy, you're like I said, you're thinking about, you know, you're probably going to get back into it. So let's use this as a transition into comedy and the bombing, and let's hear your story about a time where you felt like you bombed really bad. Okay.
So I did think about this, and then I couldn't remember if you released the other podcast and what stories I had told you before. But I don't have like one super memorable time of bombing where, because I know you had asked like to think of one where it was like a show I really wanted to do well in and I didn't. But I will say this, I bombed in the beginning of comedy every time I went on stage for like so long, like just so long. And it was honestly, I don't even know why I kept trying. I really don't. Like, I wasn't naturally good at it. And this is the thing a lot of comics don't, or people who are aspiring comedians don't understand, is that just because you're funny in life, you know, and your friends and family think you're goofy and funny, you could do stand-up. And that's what most people do not I didn't understand that. I mean, I was 21 years old the first time I got on stage, and everyone's like, you're funny. You'll be a great host. I was hosting a comedy show. And so I wrote a bunch of jokes, and I was like, this is hilarious. This is so great. They're going to love me. Maybe this is what I'm meant to do, right? And I'm going to be the next Paula Poundstone. I loved her growing up. I was terrible. I was so bad. Like, I will never forget that feeling, because there's no feeling like thinking you're really good at you're going to be good at something and being so embarrassingly awful at it. Like, I'd always been pretty good, because I think we instinctually know as human beings, right? Like, if we really like something and we give it our best, we're usually pretty good at it.
Yep.
Like, I know my limitations. Like, I'm not good at math. So, like, I don't even try. I was just like, yep, this isn't going to work. But, you know, in sports, I'm not very athletic. You know, I know these things about myself. Comedy was something that surprised me because I thought I would be really good at it, and I actually was garbage at it. And that hurt my feelings. And then I also, being a stubborn person, was like, I had to keep trying to do this. I have to get better at this. Like, there has to be like some formula that I don't understand. And, you know, we're talking, I mean, what was it, like 2004? I don't know if I'm doing the math right on this.
Well, you did already say you're not good at math, so it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like 2004, 2005 that I started doing comedy. And this is before, I mean, I didn't even have a computer back then. Like, there was I don't think there was a YouTube. Maybe there was. If there was, I didn't know about it or care about it. There just weren't. Was there YouTube that you're giving me a funny look?
Well, no, because I was trying to remember. I don't remember what year. I don't think back in 2004, I don't think YouTube was quite out yet. If it was in the very early stages.
Right. And like, I don't know what, I didn't have any books on comedy. I had no frame of reference on how to write jokes. And, you know, and I think most comedians don't take the time to do the research either, to like actually read the books. I mean, I eventually did read the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter so that I had a frame of reference for how to really like do jokes and how it worked, which was helpful. I actually always recommend that book to people, you know, who are starting.
I actually tried to read that book, and I got a couple pages in, and I was like, this is not for me. But I think part of it is it's one of them. It's a book that if you're a beginning comic, and when I picked it up, I'd been doing comedy for like 6 or 7 years already. For like somebody that's new to comedy, I think it's a great book because it's very like simple and like laid out. But if you've already been doing comedy for a while, it's hard to like get a takeaway because it's like, well, I've already know all this.
Yeah, no,
because I learned the hard way.
It's definitely for beginners, I think. But I think it can be helpful to anybody. I mean, I go back and flip through it from time to time just to kind of like remind myself because, I don't know. I think it's good. There's like little exercises in it you can do. I mean, people are probably listening to this and be like, what a dumbass. Like, I would never read that.
Well, no. I'm not saying a lot of people. Actually, a lot of people do read that book. A lot of that book comes up on podcasts all the time. In fact, I was just listening to You Made It Weird the other day, and I forget who he was talking to, but Pete Holmes was talking about how when he started comedy, he read that book. You know, so like there are comics that read that book.
Yeah, and I wish more comics would have do something, like take a class or read a book or something. Because I think a lot of new comics, you go to the open mics and they're up there just like rambling and they're annoying and they're not even trying, and it's just like, ugh, you're annoying. Nobody wants to just hear you ramble about some stupid story that happened to you. But that's what happens when we don't know how comedy works,
Yep. And, on that too, another thing that I noticed, especially because I was just at an open mic last night, and a lot of the first few comics didn't know what the light was. And of course, the club never really explains what it is because they're just like, if you're a comic, you need to know this. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to know this stuff. Even though it could be your first night, nobody really explains what the light is or whatever. And the first few comics all ended up getting cut off and, stopped because at this particular open mic, if you run the light, they just cut the mic and say, all right, you're done, whether you're in the middle of a joke or not.
Right. And that's the weird thing about comedy too. It's like you need to just do it to learn the rules. Like you just, or to get better at it or whatever. Yeah, but I was definitely pretty bad. I'm surprised that I tortured myself through all of the like bombing that I did to eventually get laughs. And then I think when you start to get laughs, you get a little addicted to it. You're like, oh, like, and it's not about, I mean, I don't know what it is. I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, it's not even about like, oh, they're laughing at me because I'm so funny. It's connecting, we're all human beings. And I think we can relate to this more now with the pandemic than ever is we're starved for connection. We want to connect with people. And when you can stand up in front of an audience of people and tell something from your point of view and make them laugh, it's the most amazing form of connection. It feels really good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That energy that gets created between telling a joke and the audience responding to that joke in a positive way. It's unreal.
No, for sure. For sure. So, I mean, maybe that's not the best example, but I mean, I will tell you, I did a comedy show really high one time. And I don't smoke. I'm not a pot smoker. And in fact, at this time I hadn't smoked weed. It's not that I haven't smoked weed or whatever, but I did as a teenager. Obviously, I think we all do. And maybe in my early 20s, but, this was not that long ago, actually. And I hadn't smoked weed in probably 10 years or so. And I was having some stomach issues. And I was in Las Vegas and I was doing a show there and opening up for a friend of mine. And I was like, I don't know if I can do the show. I'm so sick. Like, I don't have an answer. I'd taken Pepto-Bismol and I'd done all the things. And I was just like, ugh. And he was like, smoke some weed. And I was like, well, that's a terrible idea. Like, I don't get high. I don't like being high. I'm already high anxiety and paranoid as a human being anyway. Like, I don't need to throw some weed on top of it and just be a freak. But he's like, it will settle your stomach. And he was right. It did settle my stomach. And I was high as a kite. And I got up on stage in Vegas. And I don't think I did very well. But I didn't care at all. Not even remotely. Like, I thought it would be the opposite. I thought I would go up and bomb because I was high and then be paranoid and like freak out and like run off stage or something. But I didn't. I had like this really weird heightened awareness. See, I'm telling you, Diana Ross hair. You see it, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, it's coming.
Oh my God, humidity. Yeah. And so I just had this like hyper awareness and I'm like looking at the people in the audience and I felt like I was more entertained by them as an audience in my really high state than they were by me. And I just did not care. And I had these like weird like moments where I was like, yeah, I don't think they like me, but fuck it. Like, who cares? Like, it's just a comedy show. And it was such a surreal experience, but I was like, I'll never go on stage high again on there. I don't know how people do that.
I don't either. Honestly, I did that one time and I did not like it at all because when I was on stage, I could feel how everything was slower to me. Like everything was slowed down, and I didn't feel like as sharp or alive. Like I just was like, everything was delayed, and I did not like that feeling because I like to be right there, and if something happens, I want to respond instantly. I don't want to be like, did that happen? Like, start questioning, am I imagining this, or did this really happen right now? Are we real? Is this, and like have some frickin' mental breakdown just because I'm high. But like I said, the one time that I was high on stage, it was the same. Like I did not like the feeling, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And I don't even know if I did, I don't even remember. Because I was so focused on, I don't like this feeling of being high, like
exactly,
on stage. Like I don't remember if jokes hit, the audience liked me, none of that mattered. The only thing I got out of that is, I can't do this ever again. I hate this feeling.
Oh yeah, and just that heightened awareness. Like we have it as comedians anyway, right? We can feel the hecklers. We know the people that are glaring at us with their arms crossed and are not having fun. But when you're high, you're like super like focused on it. Like I was like, oh, that lady in the front. Like, and I just started talking about it. I was like, oh, lady, you're not having any fun, are you? Like, this sucks. Like, I'm really high, so I don't care. But like, whoa, like you really hate me. And it was just such a bizarre, like so not my personality set that I was just like, I may not get invited back here again. But I guess it's better than canceling last minute or have it like being on stage or something. I don't know. But
that's how you know you're a dedicated comic. That's how you know you're ready to work the road. Because you get sick and you're like, well, all right, I'll try your remedy and still go out there.
The show must go on.
Exactly. The show must go on.
Yeah, if you have to go totally blaze out of your mind, then that's what must happen.
Yeah, that's like one of the worst things for me is to, if I hate canceling gigs. Like it just, once I give a commitment, I hate it. Even if like, and there's comics, and I understand that why they do it because they need to make money or whatever. But there are comics that'll get a gig, and then all of a sudden they'll get a gig that pays more, so they'll cancel the lower paying gig, even though they, agreed to do that first. I just can't do that unless it's like an extraordinary opportunity where it's like, oh wait, I'm going to be on TV. I have to do this. You know what I mean? But like, I can never back out of gigs once I've committed. Now I can easily say no. Like I'm getting good at that. Like I get a gig that something comes in that I don't like. I'm like, no, I'm not taking that. Not interested. But once I say, yeah, I'll do that. Oh man, I just can't back out.
I got blacklisted from a club for backing out of a gig last minute once. And they wrote me a really nasty email and they CC'd a bunch of comedians that I know on the email. So I was supposed to, I won't say who or whatever. I won't put anybody on blast, but I was supposed to open up for kind of a big celebrity. And it was weird that they even asked me because I don't think my comedy at all jives with this celebrity's audience at all. Like I was just like, really, me? Why? But it was a paid gig. It was Las Vegas. They're going to pay me 3 shows a night for like 3 or 4 nights. I don't even remember what. And I canceled like I think it was a few days out, maybe even a week out. Like it was enough time for them to find a replacement. And they were really angry. And I was like, really? Like I'm so replaceable in this gig. Like you could literally get any opener and they'll probably do better with this audience than I will. And they were just like, but you're the only clean comic that we know that's a female. And I was like, what? Like, that's not true. I am not a clean comic. I was like,
wait a minute.
Right?
Did I miss something? Because as soon as you said clean comic, I was like, wait a minute. Did you change your comedy?
No! That's why I was like, wait, what are you guys talking about? Like, this is crazy. And so it was a family emergency and I didn't want to like say what it was because it was very personal. And they said, they sent me an email and they were like, you are so unprofessional and you are blacklisted from our club. You can never come back. And they CC'd a bunch of comedians that I know on it. And I was just like, why would you do that to me? Like, okay, fine, fire me, that's fine. But why would you CC all these comics? Like, they wanted other people to know, like, she cancels gigs. And it's not like it was the night of the show and I was like, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
It was literally days out. And I was just like, wow, comedy is cutthroat, man.
Oh, it can be. Oh, yeah. Last summer, I actually missed a show and I felt so bad about it, but my car broke down on the way to this show. And I was featuring for the weekend, and it was like an 8-hour drive. So I only got like a couple hours out of the city and my car broke down. And then by the time the tow guy got there and I figured out other transportation options, there was no way I was going to make it to the shows. Like, there's no possible way that I could make it to the Friday shows. But once I got transportation figured out, I still went. I did the Saturday shows, only got paid half of what I was supposed to, obviously, because I missed those shows, which I totally get. But I totally took a loss. But I was like, I let you down last night, and I knew that if I didn't go Saturday, I'd be done at that club. And that's how a lot of clubs in comedy is. Going back to what you're talking about with being cutthroat, because it really is.
Yeah. And, it's funny, though, because it is and it's not. It's not if you're a huge celebrity, because I know, because I've worked for comedy clubs,
Yep.
Huge celebrity will cancel literally last minute. It's like the audiences, their butts are in the seats, they bought their tickets, and then the celebrity calls and they're like, no, I'm not coming. Like, that happens all the time, and they don't get blacklisted from clubs. But yeah, when you're starting out and you aren't a huge name, I feel like people even, like, it's like they're waiting for you to mess up just so they can be like, you can't come back. Like,
I wouldn't doubt it in some places. There's a lot of negative energy in comedy, that's for sure.
Which is so weird, because you'd think it wouldn't be. You'd think it would be a fun environment and that comedians would be these lovely, jolly people, but we're really a bunch of curmudgeons and assholes. Yep. And there's so much, like, awful stuff that goes on in the community, and sexual harassment, and don't even get me fucking started on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
that's an issue that it's like a reoccurring issue, especially here lately. It keeps coming up, and it's like, that's not something that should keep coming up, because it shouldn't fucking exist. Like, it needs to stop. And every couple of years, it keeps resurfacing because some shitbag is doing shitty things, and it's just like, it's so awful.
And it makes of them.
What's that?
There's so many of them. I can't believe how many of them there are. Oh,
so gross. It's one of them things, like, it totally ruins comedy. Like, I, as a guy, and I can't even imagine what it's like to be a woman in comedy, but even as a guy, because of that kind of energy, I don't even want to go out and be around people, because I don't want to be associated with that negativity. And I'm automatically associated with it because I'm a fucking guy. Automatically that's that. But it's like, and like I said, I just couldn't imagine what it's like to be a woman in comedy with all them fucking creepers. It's gross.
I mean, I think about the people that have the females that have really made it in comedy. And I'm like, I can imagine, like, what the stories that they have of their journey. I mean, it has to be crazy. Mine was crazy enough to make me really want to take a step back from it, because I was like, this is getting out of hand. Like, it's just too often, and as a woman, you lose opportunities, it's just, you hurt a guy's ego or what have you, and then next thing you know, you're off the flyer and off the show, and it's hurtful because I feel like, I'm not going to say female comics have to work harder, but in some ways I felt like
in some ways they do. It's not right, but
yeah, it's definitely a different journey, and you definitely have to prove yourself. I mean, I've shown up at shows before and had guys be like, "Oh, you're the opener?" Like, "Oh, you're a chick. Like, are you funny?" And that was the thing that I would get asked all the time. I'm like, they don't go up to male comics and go, "Are you funny?" Like, it just doesn't happen. And, I hate to just be like, nah, we get treated like crap. But we do. I mean, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And it's unfortunate. But I do think the landscape is changing. And there's this huge female comic boom, and I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing more female voices in comedy. I think it's so awesome. And I think that the awareness, social media has given voices to people and an outlet to be like, hey, this is unfair. We don't like it. And it's changing. I do believe it's changing for the better. I mean, you know, with the current people coming out of, you know, right and left, it's like maybe it's not changing fast enough, but I do think.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, it's definitely not changing fast enough. But I do think you're right. Social media is definitely helping it now because, you know, I read that book I Killed. I don't know if you've read that, but it's basically a compilation of stories from comics, like all sorts of comics, a lot of like road stories essentially. And there's a lot of skeevy sexual harassment that they're talking about in this book and the shitty behavior that they did or a comic they were with did. Not just to comedians, but like wait staff and people that came to the shows and like all over. And it's like, oh man, this has been, why everybody's surprised this is happening? Is apparently nobody's reading books because there's a whole fucking book about this shit.
Oh, yeah. And I've lived it. So none of it surprised me. I mean, when the whole Louis C.K. thing happened, I was not the least bit surprised. And not that I've had any interactions with him, but I had that exact thing verbatim happen to me with a male comic. And so I was like, what is this a thing? Like the whole wanting to jerk off in front of women? Like, is this a thing that I've never even heard of that before? Like, I'm like, what is this? And why does it seem to be a male comic thing? Like, it's just bizarre.
Probably because the male comics don't know how to talk to women, maybe? I don't know. Like, it's like, I have no idea, but it's gross.
Yeah, it is gross. It is gross. But, you know, we have more women out there talking about these things and more women on stage and our voices are being heard. I love that. There's so many, you know, great female comics out there now, and I follow a lot of them on Twitter, and you know, a lot of young females too, which I think is just great. I know people make a lot of jokes, like, because there's so many like hot model type female comedians now, which is weird.
But it's true. There is a lot.
Yeah, it's weird. Because it just doesn't seem like an industry that would attract, you know, the popular girls in school. Like, it's for us weirdos. So it's kind of like the mean girls are taking over our territory. But
yeah, and I can see that. But I feel like a lot of it, I don't think a lot. I mean, and I'm not speaking for all of them, and I'm not speaking for any of them. I'm going to put this out there that this is just an opinion. But I feel like for some, they don't even really necessarily care about comedy and being funny. But to them, it's a way to attract an audience so that they can lead to their, you know, to their fan sites and, you know, things like the OnlyFans or the Patreon for the modeling stuff.
Sure. I mean, whatever works. You know, I'm not opposed.
Oh, and absolutely.
You know, art is out there. The stages are out there for everybody to explore. And I think everybody should try comedy. I mean, whenever, and I'm sure this happens to you too, whenever I tell people that I do stand-up comedy, they're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to try that. I'm like, do it. Write some jokes and go do it. Like, it's a weird experience and it will humble you. And I think it will scare the crap out of you, and it's great. And when you do get good at it, if you stick with it long enough to, you know, get booked and get paid and connect with audiences and make people laugh, there's no better feeling. It's really fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do. That does happen quite a bit too. And it's just like, well, what's stopping you? All you got to do is do it. And they're like, I could never do that. Well, you'd be surprised what a person could do. I thought the same thing. I could never do that. And well, look, here I am having this conversation.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's fun to watch people blossom over the years, too. It's like a lot of comedians that I thought would never be good have gotten good. And it's fun to watch their development and be like, wow, they just doing it. And now they're really good. And it's really cool to see that. And then there are people that have been in the game for like 15, 20 years. I'm like, you're still not funny. But hey, like.
All right. You don't have to get personal with me now. All right. That's just mean. Luckily, I haven't been in the game for 15 years yet, so I know you're not talking about me.
I mean, I've been in the game way too long. I should be much more successful than I am. But, you know, whatever. It's I definitely go back and forth. Like, is comedy for me? Is it my, is it my true passion? There's so much you have to deal with in comedy, being poor because it doesn't pay that well for a long time. And, going to open mics and having to sit through tons of shitty people, and it's really boring and annoying. There's so much investment you have to make in it. So I think you have to your heart has to be 100% in it,
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And that's, and I go to open mics a lot. Well, not as much as I used to, but I have a hell of a time sitting through open mics. Like, even I went to an open mic last night and I almost backed out and did not go. I was like, do I really need to go? Do I really want to go? And finally, my fiance is like, you need to get out of the house. You need to go do something. So I'm like, okay, I should go. So I really went for more just to run, see some other comics or whatever. But sitting through an open mic, that just, it's so hard.
It's the worst. I have a hard time just sitting through like a good comedy show because just years. Like, you have days where you're like, I just cannot hear one more joke. And you start to feel like you've heard it all, and like,
oh, absolutely.
And you're just like, ugh, even if they're good, you're like, yes, you're my friend. I am sitting through this, but I don't know. I feel like we don't want to go to work when don't have to or whatever,
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm the same way when it comes to watching other shit. Like, I even have a hell of a time watching stand-up specials on Netflix or Amazon or any of that. Like, I'm like, people, you get comics that are all like, oh, did you get to see the new special that came out? And they're all like comedy nerds and all about watching other specials. And I'm like, I didn't watch it. I have nothing against them. I'm just not that excited about watching comedy because I see so much of it all the time.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I definitely do watch new specials that come out, and it's more of like a research type. It's more like I need to see what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I find myself, I'll kind of lose interest and get on my phone or walk out of the room or something or turn it off early. And I always feel guilty about that unless it's like one of my friends, like somebody I'm trying to support. Then I'll watch it all the way through because I'm like, I'm trying to be supportive, and I want you to get the view, and it's, but yeah, other than that, I'm like, it's not my first choice of something to watch. I'm not
neither.
Sit down and watch comedy tonight. Like, and I find this happens too. A lot of people will send me comedy clips, like family and friends, like, oh, you're a comedian, you love comedy, like, and they send me tons of clips, and I'm like, I don't have time to watch all these clips, and most of these people, I've seen their jokes already, like, I've heard them, like, I don't rewatch it. Thank you.
That's one thing, fortunately for me, I have not had to deal with. I haven't, I don't have a lot of family that's like bombarding me with comedy. Like, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Although I do sometimes have coworkers when they find out I do comedy, they will ask they'll be like, hey, have you heard of this person? Or have you heard of that? Or have you seen this? Have you seen that? And it's like, well, yes, some of it. And then they're surprised. They'll like name a comedian. I'm like, I don't think I've heard of them. And they're like, you haven't heard of this person? How can you be in comedy and not know this person? It's like, you have no idea how many comedians there are.
So many. I know my uncle was just saying, he was like, the guy across the street here teaches comedy, and he's not funny at all. And I was like, yep. Welcome to comedians. I mean, how many? I know lots of funny comedians who are not funny people to be around.
Oh, that's absolutely. I mean, and, I'm one of them people that I'm not always, I have to know people. Like, if I'm just hanging out with a bunch of strangers, I'm not a funny guy. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be the entertainer of the group. Now, if I'm with some close friends, I'm way more, myself and laid back, and I will be funny and have a good time. But outside of that, and I've had people like before a show, they'll find out I'm the comedian. They're like, you're the comedian? You don't seem very funny. Like, I've had people say that to my face. They're like, you don't seem very funny. And I'm just like, that's because I'm not working.
Right.
My job hasn't started.
Yeah, it's
this
like people
is before the show.
On. Yeah, they expect you
all
on
the time.
Like, you just think of hilarious jokes all the time. They don't understand that we work on bits and we go in front of people and we tell the joke until it finally is good, until we figure out how to make it good. They don't understand that the art form of it,
Yep. And I'm always like, well, Wait till I get on stage, and then you can base your opinion. Stay for the show. Buy a ticket. Because that's another thing I get too, like having a day gig as a side thing. I end up, when people find out I do comedy, it's like, well, tell us a joke. And I'm like, well, buy a ticket, come to a show, because I'm here to do this job, not that job.
Right? Yeah, and it doesn't really work that way. Like, they don't understand that all jokes aren't just like one-liners. You can tell they're not like written like street jokes.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a good point. When you can't just break down and start going into a bit at work.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, you want to hear a joke, and you just pull a microphone out of your pocket, and you're like, so the other day I was.
I did a comedy festival one time, and they were doing these like intro videos, and I thought the intro videos for the comedy festival were just going to be like, hi, I'm Coco Briscoe, and I live in Los Angeles, and I'm a comedian. Like, I thought it was going to be like that. And the lady filming it, she's like, tell a joke. And I'm like, you want me to just think of something on the spot? And she's like, well, you're a comedian, right? Like, tell a joke. And I'm like, well, if I had time to think about this, but I'm like, I'm not going to just go into one of my bits in some weird intro video. Like, it was just very strange.
Especially like before I'm going to perform.
Right. Like, it was so strange. It's like, I don't know what you want from me. I'm very uncomfortable.
I've definitely been made to feel that way. Definitely made to feel that way. Well, I got some standard stuff that I like to do, and we're going to get into this. The bumming and bombing, the dreadful feeling of bombing. How long does that typically last for you?
When I first started doing comedy, it lasted for like days. And so I would take the embarrassment and shame and carry it around with me all the time. And I just felt awful. But, I got to a point in comedy where I didn't care about bombing. Like, it just didn't hurt my feelings. It didn't bother me. I would get off stage, and it was more about like, okay, that didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? And going back and listening to my set. And sometimes, most of the time it's you, right? Like, your energy is not up, or you're just not super into your set. But sometimes it is the audience. Like, sometimes, you have a really just low energy crowd, and they're just not laughing at a lot of stuff. But 9 times out of 10, it's you as a comedian. But
how do you distinguish when it's the audience? Like, what?
Well, I've definitely performed in front of some audiences that were just like super drunk, and it's a late night show, and there's lots of heckling, and it was just like there were elements like out of my control. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh yeah, that didn't go well, but they're not really laughing at anyone. Like, I've done those shows.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is one way you can definitely tell. Like, when every comic goes up and kind of struggles, it's something off with the audience. It can't be. Not every comic on the show can go up and not do well.
Right. Especially the headliner. I've seen headliners completely bomb, and I'm like, this guy is funny all the time, and yeah, this audience just is. They're too drunk. They're too tired. They've watched like 10 comedians go up already. They're over it.
So yeah, the only time that would happen where it could be the comedians is at a bringer show. But aside from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So are we going through questions? What are you doing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I kind of interrupted and tailed on to that. So I wasn't sure if you were done. I was letting you. Wasn't sure if you were done.
I'm like, next question, Dan.
Let's do it. I got things to do. My hair's getting frizzy. I need to go inside.
Well, what I'm concerned about is my battery on my computer is like.
Okay. Well,
I'm at 9%, so I think we're good.
Oh well. Okay. Yeah, we should be able. How do you analyze your sets after your bomb? What do you try to take away from them to improve on?
I record all of my sets, so I go back and listen to them, and usually I hear like. If it's a joke that I tell all the time, like sometimes I'll like leave out an entire part of the joke and I didn't even realize it. Like that has happened before. Or I just phrase it slightly differently. And that's the weird thing about wording. It's like you can word it just slightly different and it's not funny anymore. So I definitely always go back and I figure out, what went wrong. I think analyzing is really one of the most important things in comedy.
Oh, absolutely. That's funny that you talked about missing a joke. I did that last night. I missed a joke, and also I swapped a punchline and a setup on another joke, and I was just like, oh, shit. Nobody laughed at that. And then I realized, I was like, oh, that's because I fucked the joke up.
Oh, yeah.
It made no sense. Do you have any pre-show pre-show? Are you a pre-show gamer? Do you pre-game before your shows? Do you have a pre-show ritual or tradition? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Not really, but I will find, like, sometimes if I haven't done comedy in a while, I do tend to have a little bit of nerves. And so I just practice breathing. I mean, it's so simple, but, like, I just really try to focus on my breathing and calming myself down so that when I get on stage, I'm centered and focused and ready. Because I find, like, if somebody starts talking to me right before a set, and I'm like, especially if I'm about to do new material and they're just like chatting me up and then they call my name and I get up there and I'm just not focused, and that will totally screw up my set. So, and it's funny because I've actually asked people, I'm like, I'm sorry, can I just talk to you after my set? Like, I need to focus right now. I need to, like, sometimes just quick look through some of my notes or just focus on my breathing, get my nerves calm so that I'm just collected.
Yep. Nope, that makes sense. And then a couple more quick things, or one more quick thing, and then I'll do the last question. What's been your favorite gig so far?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite gig. But I definitely always enjoy shows where I know the people on the show, especially if it's people that I've known in comedy for a long time. I always enjoy just seeing old friends and reconnecting with people and, getting a chance to see how they've grown as a comic since I saw them last, especially if it's been a couple of years or something. Those are always the shows I like the most.
Right on. All right, the final thing is called Pick a Number. You're going to pick a number between 1 and 20, and I'm going to ask you a corresponding question.
1 and 20, 18.
18. How many times does it take for you to listen to a song that you really love before you actually hate it instead?
How many times do I have to hear a song before I hate it?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Oh my gosh, if it's a song I really love, I never hate it. Like, I listened to all of Casey Musgrave's albums like 500,000 times. I never get sick of them. I know every word. I could just listen to it forever and ever on repeat.
That's good. That's good. And that just tells you that some musician, like a musician like that, is obviously really good if people want to keep listening to their music.
Yeah, it just makes me happy. She makes me really happy, and I'm a country girl, and I relate to her music. I love it.
All right, well, that's good. That's awesome. All right, well, I think that's going to do it. What do you want to, you talk about your social media or where people can find you?
Oh, yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Briscoe Kid with 2 Ds, Briscoe Kid with 2 Ds. And then on Instagram, I'm at Coco.Briscoe.
Sweet.
Oh, yeah, I'm on now. I'm on TikTok. I don't know what my TikTok is. I think it's just Coco Briscoe. Yeah.
Coco Briscoe, probably. That seems about right. All right, cool. Before we finish this, though, I do want to tail back real quick to my little rant about comedians and doing comedy to lead to the modeling sites and stuff. I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, I sounded like I was bitter about it. And I want to clarify that I am not. I totally understand marketing, and it's genius, and whatever pays those bills, pay them fucking bills. Goddamn right.
I mean,
if it works, do it.
Right. I mean, if they are like super hot models and they're super funny, I'm definitely really bitter about that.
Well, you can be.
Fuck that. No, you get one or the
other. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan. Great to see you.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitz Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week, and remember, stay safe so you can live to love.